G'day. This time, and you may not like this one, I'm going to talk about me. It might give some sort of a reference as to why I think the way I do, what motivates me. It's just where I've come from, where I'm headed. Now, I stated before, I'm 68 years old. I'm old school, I suppose you could call it. And I was brought up like everybody else. Well, I suppose. My family weren't exactly religious, but we still went to Sunday school and did all that stuff. Sorry about that. Yeah. But like I said, we weren't forced to. It was just, I suppose, normal back then. You went to church, you went to Sunday school. You know, we believed in a God and all sort of stuff. Had morals. Yeah. Had a moral background. Brought up to respect others, respect our elders. Sometimes, you know, because of that religious base, spare the rod, spoil the child type stuff, there was a lot of punishment going on, you know, with leather straps and feather dusters and all the goodies. Not really into that stuff. I don't think that's the way to teach anybody, tell the truth. That's just do as you're told or else. Makes kids sneakier then, because they want to do what they want to do anyway, but they just make sure your parents don't find out. Otherwise we'll get the stick. Okay, so I was brought up with just the general background. And you know, yeah, I was afraid of the dark. I wasn't really afraid of anything I could see. It was just the things I couldn't see that I was concerned about. So, going to bed and going to sleep, and I suppose because I was scared of the dark, you know, going to sleep was probably a good thing. I can't see anything then. Just close my eyes, and I learned to control my dream state. So before I went to sleep, I would actually, I was only young, I would think about what I wanted to dream about. Then I'd go to sleep and dream about that. And I took total control of my dream state. It fascinated me. I just thought that was normal. Everyone must be doing this stuff. This is great. Dream about whatever I want. Do what I want in my dreams. Not hurting anybody. This is fantastic. My own little world. My escape from the reality that sometimes I wasn't really impressed with. So I had a ball, actually. I had a ball. I could do what I liked. I could fly. I could do all sorts of stuff in my dreams. It was excellent. And, okay, normal childhood. I was pretty intelligent, but not that impressed with going to school, to tell the truth. I did well, fairly well, I suppose. But my father died when I was about 12, and I lost interest in school. Just didn't interest me anymore. Going to Sunday school, church and all sort of stuff didn't interest me anymore. I became a bit of a rebel. You know, when I got my first car, I was a maniac, actually. When I was sober, when I was drunk and stoned, I drove really great. I was concerned about the speed limit, a bit paranoid about the police, so I drove really well when I was drunk and stoned. Not so well when I was sober. So I had a lot of accidents, that sort of stuff. And yeah, the rebel, I did everything that should have killed me, to tell the truth. Really. I had fast cars, I had fast boats, motorbike. I pretty much sort of wasn't concerned about what could happen. Speed, love speed. Till I didn't. Till a car used to come to an abrupt stop, sometimes on its roof. So I survived all that stuff. Some of my friends didn't. The rebel, rebelling against the world, didn't like it much. Didn't like it. A lot of suffering. So by the time I got to about 28, I suppose, still hadn't gotten over Dad's death, even at that age. Still concerned me. I got into meditation. Best thing I ever did, meditation. If I'd known about that sooner. As when I was younger, I used to think about what I wanted to dream about when I went to sleep. Meditation was the same thing. Go into meditation and you visualise your thoughts. You have all these visions going on in your meditative state. Walking through the forests and all sorts of stuff, and flying and whatever. Pretty much I could do whatever I liked in my meditation state as well, same as the dream state when I was asleep. It was just a conscious dream state, I suppose you'd call it. And yeah, I love meditation. I could ask questions. What's all this stuff about? And when you go deep within yourself, you're really accessing memory. Memory of everything that's ever been, actually, if you're really aware of that sort of stuff. Surprising what you can access. I was accessing a lot of stuff. How does this work? How does that work? What's all this stuff about? And one day in meditation, and okay, I think I still believed in a God at that time. Thought there was something out there, something out there, whatever. And I thought, my guidance might have been coming from there when I asked questions. And I'd get a dream that would reflect a story, help me to understand certain things. And then one day in the meditative state, I used to get boosts of energy. I used to get these boosts of energy, random boosts of this energy. Well, it used to really fill me up. It was like a blissful state. Vibration. It was fantastic. So I thought, wow, this is interesting. I want more of that. So I more or less said, well, lay it on me. Give me everything. Hit me with this big boost of energy. Be careful what you ask for, because you'd probably get it. I did. Threw me back in the chair. The vibration was so intense, I felt like my head was going to explode. It was massive. absolutely massive boost of energy. Never felt anything like that before in my life. But I realised, a bit much for me. I think I asked too much. So when I settled down, I thought, okay, be careful what you wish for. Got to be a little bit more careful here. I'm not quite ready for that. Still thought it was probably coming from a god. Okay. Because that was my background. That's all I knew. That's all I knew. Then I started to experience some interesting stuff in meditation groups. That group of people used to sit around in a circle. Sometimes on the floor, other times on chairs. But then I started to jump from one person to the next, looking through their eyes, feeling what they felt. Thought, ooh, wow, this is pretty interesting. What's going on here? I felt a connection to all of those people when I did that. It was like I was them. And I started to experiment with that stuff. I thought, oh, this is okay. But then I thought about it, and I thought, oh, that's a bit of an invasion of privacy, I think, maybe. They might not like that. So I stopped doing that. I thought, no, that's probably not a good thing. It didn't make me feel good. I thought, oh, initially it did. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Wow. But, I thought, they might not want me to know how they're feeling, how they see life. I didn't realise then, but it wasn't really up to me. That's just who I became, actually. I used to feel everything. What was going on around me, what people were feeling. I used to feel everything. And it was pretty intense. An empath. Sounds good sometimes in theory. Connected to people's feelings. Not that good all the time, though. Someone feels like crap, and you're accessing their stuff, then you feel like crap. And if you don't know what's going on there, you think you're the one that feels like the crap. So you have to go, oh, hold on for a minute. Is this me, or I'm getting it from someone else? Makes life a little bit interesting. Not quite sure what's going on. Okay, meditation. So, yeah, I got right into that stuff. I thought it was great. Used to meditate all the time. God, just about sometimes all weekend I want to meditate. Go into a state of bliss. Whoa, yeah. Permanent smile. Big cheesy. The smile didn't go away. It was just permanent. You just had this permanent smile on your face. In a state of bliss. Whoa. It was like being stoned. Drugs, not alcohol. It was like a trip. But I understood when I heard about a lot of these people who meditate. They're cross-legged there for hours and hours, or they go and live in a cave for a while. Blissed out. Not that interested in the world. Just blissed out. An escape from reality. And that's when I realised after a while that's all it was. Escape from reality. Wow, it's easy to get bogged down in that stuff. It's like an addiction. Just like drugs. It's just like an addiction. You're blissed out. You think this is fantastic. It's separated from the world. So I thought, nah, that's not the place to be. You got to live in the reality. If you want to be like that, that's fine. Live in a cave, but that's not the real world. It's a hiding spot, place to get away from it. If you want to live in the real world, that's when I realised, okay, let's see what we can do with this stuff. These boosts of energy that I used to get, I started to control them. They weren't random anymore. I could just think about it, get this massive boost of energy. I would be blissed out in less than a second. I could be stoned to the eyeballs in less than a second. Just total bliss. I thought, okay, but then I can stop it and I can just do my stuff in the real world, and when the real world got a bit too much for me, I just stop and bliss out. Yeah, a bit of a coffee break. I loved it. I really did. But I thought, okay, now this is fine. You know, I can bliss out, all that sort of stuff. But I was more interested in getting answers to my questions like I did in meditation. So, but I realised after a while I no longer had to sit in a quiet space and find a little hidey hole away from all the noise to meditate. I could just go into a meditative state anywhere I wanted to, whenever I wanted to, and I could still ask those same questions. Blissed out, but still aware of what's going on around me, and ask questions. Again, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. I asked this interesting question: why is everything the way it is? Started to get these dreams when I went to sleep. Saw this blonde-headed girl dressed in white. We were sitting back to back. She was projecting an image, a geometrical structure, so that I could see it. And geometrical structure, I'd never seen that stuff before. The next day, I got this incredible urge to build something, to make something. I got these long strands of wire and started to cut them up, just thin wire, and started to solder them together, because at that time I had become a welder, steel fabricator. Started soldering these wires together. It was like a spiral that I was making. Like a spiral. It had 12. It was like 12 points of the clock face, but they spiraled upwards. There wasn't 12 points on any particular layer. There was all these layers, squares, equilateral triangles joined together. There was hexagons and just ordinary equilateral triangles. There was actually 12 more or less layers to this structure, like a spiral. And then I created two apexes, one at the top, one at the bottom. It was like this wire crystal structure. Wire crystal. And then I painted it with zinc gal paint, zinc based, protect the wire so it wouldn't rust. Okay, it's interesting. I'm studying this thing, a spiral with all 12 different layers. Put it together. Then, because I was going to meditation groups still at that time, I more or less, because it had 12 layers, it was like the 12 semitones semitones of music. I knew nothing about music. It was about as musical as a banana. Did music at school. Wasn't fussed on it, didn't understand it. Yeah. Right. So, but this thing was like this structure. There's different layers. Some had hexagons, like I said. Some had equilateral triangles, rectangles. But each of those layers was more or less a chord, a musical chord of 3 frequencies or 4 frequencies or 8 frequencies. Like I said, knew nothing about music, but I had to buy a keyboard synthesizer. What do I want a keyboard synthesizer for? Does it play itself? So I bought this keyboard synthesizer, but first of all I started to write down these notes, these different layers of this wire structure, these chords. I started to put together these chords, musical chords. Okay, put them all together. Then I had to play them on this keyboard synthesizer. Like I said, couldn't read music, never played an instrument before in my life. But I went into this blissful state again and started to get this guidance about music, about frequency actually. Let's get away from the music side of this. Frequency. Chords of different frequencies. Okay, so when I put all these things together, initially the first time I ever put them together, and that was before I got the keyboard synthesizer, I took it into one of the meditation groups I was at. They had a piano there, and they played these chords on the piano. Again, I got this massive burst of energy, threw me back. Felt like my head was going to blow off my shoulders. I was just in this vibratory state where I felt like I was just going to disappear. That's why I got the keyboard synthesizer and thought, oh, what's going on here? This stuff is really having an incredible effect on me. What's going on? So I started to get a lot of information about music. I started to create all of these different chords. 6 note, 8 note, 4 note, 3 note, 5 note, all these different chords. Now, that wire structure, I ended up hanging it from the ceiling of my room. My room was downstairs of a 2-story home, had RSJs from the ceiling. So I hung it from the ceiling. I had a round white rug I put underneath, and I also had a hexagon shaped cane short table, probably about, I don't know, 800, 900 mil high, maybe a bit less. Put that there. Now, I was also getting, when I went into this blissful state, I would start drawing mandalas, these designs, all different geometric designs and all sorts of stuff. Colour them in with crayons, different colours, probably to represent different frequencies of sound, different colours. So I put some of these mandalas on this hexagon table. It was actually 2 hexagrams, 2 6-pointed stars, making a dodecagon, 12-pointed design, clock face. Again, clock face. Now it had this picture in the centre of these hexagrams of like a blue bird with a human face, but with slanty eyes, like Asian eyes, crown on its head, gold crown. Then I had to go and get a whole lot of different sorts of crystals and put them around the 12 points of the clock face, the 2 hexagrams, different crystals, put them all around. Had this wire structure hanging down, almost touching that table, all these crystals. Then I was impressed to put a candle inside this wire structure, pretty much in the centre. Now the wire structure overall length was probably about, a bit over a metre I suppose. Probably about 300 mil in diameter. Like I said, it was like a wire crystal with 2 apexes. Okay, so I put this candle in there, had a white rug underneath, had these crystals. It was actually, my room, where I had this, was in the centre of the room, but had a huge window, almost the whole size of the wall, looking out over the Lake Macquarie. You could see the sunset when the sun went down. Now one afternoon I lit this candle, the sun was almost going down, and when you lit the candle in that structure, it cast a shadow onto the white rug underneath. The shadow was pale blue. It was a pale blue shadow on a white rug. Fantastic. What's going on here? Pale blue. Just the shadow. Just the shadows were pale blue. The rest of the rug was still white. And it was only when the sun was down to a certain level that it went that colour. It was pretty much fascinated me. I thought, it's creating a blue frequency. This wire structure might be like an antenna, a receiver, picking up this particular frequency and just radiating it out. But it was the shadow. But when I looked around in the room, the other shadows on the wall were going blue as well. All the shadows seem to be going blue. I did a lot of experimenting with that. I meditated near it, see what I can get from this stuff. Might be some sort of guidance, whatever. But it only, like I said, it only went, that rug only went the blue at a certain time of the afternoon when the sun was almost down. But we had fluorescent lighting downstairs, in the downstairs, the lower story of the house, all fluorescent lighting. Now, if I put a fluorescent light on outside my room, not inside the room, but outside, so it was shining through the door, created the blue shadows on the rug again. The fluorescent light was creating the blue shadows on the rug. Same as when the sun was almost down to a certain level. It was amazing. Just a lot of people I brought around there, and I thought, oh, I'll show everybody. See if they know what's going on. I even had a bloke from the Newcastle University come out and checked it out, and he was looking under the table to see if there was any lights under there. See if you thought I might have been a bit sneaky. He couldn't explain it. I couldn't find anyone that could explain it. It was just creating this blue energy, blue light. Okay, so I did a lot of work with that, more or less, like I said, meditating, so trying to figure out what it was all about. All these different crystals, whatever, all these mandalas. I had all the walls of my room were plastered with mandalas. Then I started to make these geometric structures. I'd have to get these sheets of cardboard, cut them all out, cut all these different things out, make geometric structures. But it got more complicated. You know, geometry. Whoa. Wasn't fussed on any of that sort of stuff at school. I thought, I asked this stupid question, why is everything the way it is? And I started to get all this crap. Geometry and bloody music and all sorts of stuff that I knew nothing about at the time. So I started to create some of these structures out of wire, like I did with that wire structure, just small structures. Now, I did go with a group of people to this group of a night time. Drunvalo Melchizedek, this bloke's name was. He was into sacred geometry. He was showing these videos. So we were watching that stuff, and I was pretty, I suppose, interested, but it went over my head. What's going on here? It's all stuff complicated again. So at the time, didn't sort of, like I said, I was interested, but didn't comprehend. I went for a few nights watching all these videos. Then I started to create these spheres, these geometric spheres. I'd have to work them all out on paper first, using basic geometry, just triangulating and all sort of stuff, all different angles. All these geometric spheres, platonic solids that I saw in these videos. So to create all that stuff, I thought, well, I started to put all these things together. You know, I didn't do that stuff at school. The spherical geometry, I didn't do any of that stuff at school. It was just basic stuff, basic geometry, triangles and all sort of stuff. But I started to create these designs, and when I put it all together, it was this sphere of cardboard that had all these different facets, and created these certain points where the facets came together to create points, vertices. Now they got more complicated and more complicated and more complicated. And I had all of these geometric structures as well as the mandalas on the walls. And like I said, getting so complex with all these. Some of those spheres had thousands of points on them, and then you had to create the facets to join up all the points, and there might have been 10 to 15 different types of facets. It fascinated me. I seem to have been accessing this stuff from memory, just not from my memory, but from somewhere else, putting all this stuff together. And like I said, it was pretty amazing. Then I took away that hexagon table, or No, not really. I left the table and the white rug there. Took away the wire structure. I had this massive geometric structure that was about 8 feet, because the ceiling was about 8'6", about 8 foot high, this geometric structure out of electrical conduit, about 15 mil diameter or 20 mil diameter electrical conduit. That made up, well, more or less the points of this structure were made from larger PVC pipe, so about 2 to 3 inches in diameter. Cut slits, made these, they were probably about 4 inches long, of these 3-inch diameter PVC pipe. Then it had slits cut in it so that the smaller electrical conduit could slot into those slots, and I could join up all of those points, so-called points of those larger pipe. And I put together this big structure. It was an icosahedron, had 30 points, had these emotional planes, decagons, hexagons and squares. Also a cuboctahedron of 12 points and an octahedron of 6 points, all in this same structure. The cuboctahedron had orange conduit making up the edges of that geometric structure, the icosahedron and the octahedron, because the icosahedron is made from 5 octahedrons rotated around the same vortex. But I only had one of those octahedrons, more or less to symbolise that it was made up of octahedrons. Didn't know that at the time. So I had to study what those things were to find out that they were icosahedron, cuboctahedron. Wow, it's interesting. Now I did a lot. Now these conduits, I put electrical wiring right through these conduits, right around the planes, the emotional planes of those structures. Okay, electrical wire. Then I had to go and see this bloke at the Newcastle BHP, Steel Works. He was an engineer, to make a frequency generator out of phi frequencies. Phi 1.618033.989 to 1 approximately is that ratio. 5 frequencies. Had to have 6 or 7 different generators in this thing to create these different phi frequencies, that I could create chords out of these phi ratio frequencies, and I had to play them through those electrical wiring. It became like a transmitter of these frequencies. Turned up the power, it would radiate these waves through the room. Wow, got stoned to the eyeballs again. Used to get people to sit around this thing. We'd all get stoned to the eyeballs. These frequencies, all these different chords. You know, your head would just be really light. Wow, light-headed. Sometimes I used to get inside this structure and just stand in there, and it felt like I was floating. I felt like I didn't have any weight anymore. I was just, I I could stand there for hours. No dramas whatsoever, just blissed out, weightless. Fascinated me. So I'm telling you this stuff because that's my background. That's my background. That was all part of this stuff, mandalas, cardboard spheres, frequency generators, right into this frequency stuff. You know, it was just incredible. But not only that, when I was drawing the mandalas, I would just draw this mandala. And as I was drawing it, I was in a state of bliss. When I finished it and then really focused on it, I would just get incredibly blissed out. Then I'd start to write down information. Pages and pages and thousands of pages of not only information, but formulas and patterns, musical chords, all sorts of stuff. I had just folder after folder after folder of all this different information on different stuff. One of them was how to build pyramids, how to work out the volumes and the size of the stones, and all these different ratios. And the old brain was going off its head. It was like I was going through a relearning process, re-education on a whole lot of stuff. And didn't realise at the time where it was leading me. It was leading me towards this geometrical thought harmonics. Was then relating all those geometrical structures to designs of thought, consciousness, awareness, belief, intelligence, imagination. All these different structures represented something: instinct, will, intuition, contentment, self-awareness, social conscience. All of this these spheres, geometric spheres, I was starting to get information on what they represented. What they represented within the language of mind, the language of thought. Like I said, that's my background. It was a very long, tedious educational process. It's been 40 odd years. 40 odd years of re-education, abandoning all of my belief systems and all this knowledge I was getting about how we created ourselves, pure potential, an infinite source of possibilities, how it manifested into a mind, created the universe, all the stars, the planetary systems, all symbolic of a mind, a virtual reality, dream state or dreamscape, the mind. More or less then observing all this stuff going on in the universe as what was going on in the mind. To understand our own mind, to understand how it manifested, evolved, what it was all about, what we're all about, personalities of that mind. Like I said, that's my background of getting involved in a whole lot of stuff I really didn't want to get involved in it because they were just so complicated. Mathematics, science, geometry, music. Not only that, then I had to start studying all of these different methodologies: psychology, astrology, numerology, astronomy, you know, whatever was out there, genetics, astrophysics. I had to understand the basics of all of that stuff, just the basics. So I had a basic understanding of what all that stuff was meant, why we were manifesting it. It was for us to understand stuff, understand the mind, psychology, physics, numerology, astrology. I studied so many ologies. I thought they were trying to turn me into a genius. Again, I didn't know what was going on here. Was it God? Aliens? As if I was meant to become a friggin' genius. They must have been upset with me because, like I said, it took 30 odd years for me to really start to understand anything. Well, I was just confused. A whole lot of stuff going on, filled my head full of all sorts of stuff, trying to understand it. Oh, it just threw me into a state of abandoning all of my belief systems, learning a totally new way of understanding, and no teachers to show me. I tried everywhere to find people who might understand what I was going through. Couldn't find anyone. I thought, someone's got to understand this stuff. I'll go and find someone. They'll show me. Afraid not. I had to totally rely on my inner guidance, my intuition, my awareness, self-awareness. I had to understand this stuff. I had to put it all together and relate all of this stuff to each other. How the relationships between music, mathematics, geometry, physiology, psychology. Relate all of them together. What they all meant. What part of us did they represent for us to understand? Because we built computers so we could understand ourselves, so we could understand how we calculate, how we communicate. All these computers, hard drives, memory, graphics, audio, motherboards, processors, and all that sort of stuff, which led me to, after I'd been doing all of that stuff for years, actually making cardboard, spheres, all that stuff, working it all out on paper, I had to go and buy a computer, didn't I? I thought the keyboard synthesizer was bad enough. I had to buy a computer. Okay, don't know anything about computers. Read the book, started to use the computer, had 3D geometry software and all that sort of stuff. I started to put all the writings that I had onto discs so I could store them easier than all these folders, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. Okay, so I read the book, but I tried to make the computer do more than what it was supposed to do. So I fried a few motherboards. Just gave up on me. Thought, put it in the too hard basket. what's this bloke trying to do to us? Blew them up. But I got used to it. I started to figure out how to use them without upsetting them too much. Then you'd have to get a more powerful computer to try and cope with the software you had. More powerful, more powerful. End up I was making my own. I just buy a case, get a motherboard that I needed, processor that I needed, different drives that I needed, put it all together. I was making my own, made my own computers then. Something that was powerful enough for me, for my purposes. That's when I really got into the 3D geometry stuff. Then I could really go forward with the geometrical thought harmonics. Really go forward with that, creating all these structures and then getting information on what they represented and putting together more or less a workshop manual for the mind. Workshop manual for the mind. Hundreds of pages. All these designs. All these polygons, polyhedrons, geometric spheres, all that stuff. Workshop manual for the mind. And I put it all together, and I was going to try and get it published and all sort of stuff, but it wasn't really a book. It was just relating what those different structures meant to consciousness and all sort of stuff. And probably didn't appeal to much anyway. A lot of people were fascinated by it, but that was about it. Now, it was hard enough for me to comprehend what it was all about, but for the normal everyday person who hadn't gone through the 30-odd years of reprogramming that I went through, for them it was just, oh, looks interesting. Don't want to focus on it too much though, fry the brain. So I gave this away. I put it up on the internet, gave it away, trying to see if someone might understand it. Didn't get much back from that, feedback or anything. Like I said, people were fascinated. Ooh, wonder where you're getting that from. Aliens? God? Whatever? Now, the God stuff that I was brought up with, once I really started to understand this stuff, pure potential, personalities of the mind, looking out into the universe was like watching us think, watching our own mind manifesting. Excuse me. Our own mind manifesting in front of us. Dark space represented pure potential. Pure potential then was expressed. Create stars, galaxies. It was watching the mind evolving, growing. Sorry about that. It's just swallowed a hare or something. Not a rabbit, but just a hare. Okay, so that's my background. You know, I was into meditation. I went overseas for a while, backpacking, went to India, stayed in ashram for a while, studied religions, all different types of religions, trying to figure what they were all about. From studying all the different religions and all the different belief systems, that's when I realised that the God stuff didn't make any sense anymore. Didn't make any sense. There were so many contradictions, so many different religions, different gods. You know, all those different gods, all those different deities, all those different doctrines. It was a schmozzle. You know, all these different cultures with their own way of thinking, their own preferentiality, their own belief systems, their own gods. Then because I started to realise that, okay, misrepresentation, misinterpretations, we as personalities of the mind have just misinterpreted a lot of stuff. I didn't understand what was going on, so we more or less went, oh, it must be some sort of a god doing this stuff. A pretty powerful being created us in his image. Everyone had different ideas about that too. Then there was devil stuff, and actually, when I was younger, I did experiment with seances, went to spiritual churches, did overhead readings, psychic readings, read tarot cards. So I got into all that sort of stuff. I wanted to understand what was going on. May as well try everything. Get a basic understanding again of all the stuff that's out there. Information overload. So much stuff. But I began to realise that, okay, get away from the God stuff. Start to go deeper in the meditative state. See where we came from. See if I can figure out where we came from. That's when I came up with this pure potential, an infinite source of possibilities. Nothing in particular but the source from which everything comes. Start to realise pure potential thinks, thought, a response to or an opinion of an environment. A response to or an opinion of an environment. Thought. All those thoughts accumulate, create memory, create the mind. Visualise thoughts, create the dream. All these different dream states. The sleep-related dream state, the meditative dream state, daydreams. Then I began to realise that the one we're living in is another dream. It's just that it was a virtual reality like all the other dream states, but we actualised this one through belief. We believed it to be true, to be real, to be life. We embedded ourselves into this particular dream state. It evolved. We became more embedded within this dream state. We became more indoctrinated with our belief systems, as something else created us, something else created everything. We're just pawns, subjects, doing all sorts of stuff. Yeah, right. So like I said, studied all those things, still working on a better understanding of what's going on, but got a good idea. Took long enough. I always thought I was a fast learner. Actually, in some things I was. Not this stuff. 40 years. Not this stuff. This stuff is, whoa, the essence of everything. Trying to understand all of these different dream states as visualized thoughts, interactive visualization of conscious thought, virtualized environmental construct of mind. Trying to understand all that sort of stuff. How it all worked. How through our thoughts we actually evolved the mind. Feedback process. Back to the source. The virtual brain minds. The stars. The karmic brain. Center of the universes. All these different realities manifesting virtual worlds within the mind, the corridors of the mind. And we becoming embedded within those dreams because of our belief systems. We actualized the virtual realities. Virtuality became actuality and imprisoned the mind. Now we're doing all sorts of stuff trying to figure it all out. Spirituality, religion, all this different stuff going on, trying to make sense of it all. Where do we fit in? What's going on? Do the aliens create us? Are we aliens? You know, so many different ideas. That's the mind processing the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of itself. The mind processing infinite possibilities of itself. An infinite source of possibilities. In essence, when pure potential began to think, to express thoughts, to accumulate thoughts, manifested the mind, dream states. It's trying to understand itself. Trying to understand itself. The mind became an entity that didn't know where it came from, what created it. An accumulation and categorization of thoughts, had feelings, logic, behavioral memory was being accumulated, different responses to the dream. The mind trying to understand itself. Something powerful must have created this me, whatever I am. That's where the God stuff probably came from. The mind trying to figure out what it was, where it came from, what its purpose is. So everything within the dream symbolizes something within the mind, a way of thinking. We're more or less self-teaching and rejuvenation, trying to understand what we are, where we came from, what our purpose is. That we created ourselves. But it wasn't a God. It was us. Personal realities of the one mind. All trying to figure out what's going on. Not remembering or not knowing to start with what created us. Pure potential. It's what's available, but it's not expressed. It's nothing in particular. It's not anything until it's expressed. It's just what's available. Pure energy, unpurposed energy, becoming purposed, growing, developing identities, personalities, becoming self-aware. Self-awareness leads us towards what we are, becoming aware of the self. Becoming aware of the self as a whole, what we are, how we created us, how we created the dream, the confusion, the chaos, all the different belief systems, just the mind processing all the possibilities until it figures it out. Okay, so that's me. Like it or lump it, that's me. I've lived an interesting life, complicated, yes, forever changing, continuous change. I went from a big meat eater, a mad shooter, shot everything that moved, like I said in another video, become a vegan, simply because I respect now that we're all personalities of the same mind, not just humans. Every living thing is an entity, a manifestation of that mind. Maybe we should respect that, try and understand it more, instead of thinking that we're in charge and controlling everything. In essence, we are, but not being selfish and competitive. We're all personalities of the same mind, not separate, just part of. About time we understood that, started to take personal responsibility for what we've created, try to create something better, create a better us, create a better dream. We probably will never have anything else but the dream, because that's who we are. We visualize our thoughts, we dream. That's what we do, we dream. That's the mind. A dreamscape. So, how about we make a better one? If that's all we have, and all we'll ever have, it's a virtual reality, we only actualise it because we believe it to be true. They're our belief systems, our preferentiality, our choices that determine how much we can do within the dream, how restricted we are within our own dream state. Let's face it, we're pretty restricted, but we want to make it better. We want to take personal responsibility, become considerate, respectful, learn how to, because we've already been contributing to the evolution of the dream anyway, unconsciously, so let's do it consciously. Let's do it well. Let's create something beautiful, something that we can all enjoy, share, understand, connect with each other. It's another part of us, reflected into a different sort of a body, another personal reality, still us, representing something a little bit different to what I'm representing, but still us. Okay guys, I'm going to leave that one now, and if you got anything from it, I'm really hoping you did. I'm not doing this to waste my time, to tell the truth. I'm just trying to help you understand, you know, what we are and how to create something better. So, thanking you, and I'll see what I can come up with in the future. Still thinking about that aging and rejuvenation. Body is a reflection of mind. We'll work on that one.